sweet smell of smoke. I'm your host, Rob Sandelli, and I'd like to invite you to take a journey with me through the wonderful world of barbecue. Come on along. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to start with something simple, a traditional rubbed ribs. We'll do a dry rub. Don't really need a lot of barbecue sauce. What we'll go over first is what I would put in my rub. You can buy one in the store, but it's pretty easy to make your own and you can control the flavor. What I like to do is I start, it's chili powder, paprika, brown sugar. That's for caramelization, gives it a really nice light flavor. Cumin powder, gives it a really Southwest edge to it. Salt, I don't go crazy with the salt. I probably use about half as much as most traditional ones, but it's just my flavor. I don't think you really need a lot of salt. Black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, oregano leaves. One more time, very Southwest. A little bit of mustard, sage, it's a pork product. Sage gives it a nice aromatic edge to it. And I like to add just a little bit of Old Bay to it because it's got a unique flavor to it. And that gives it a little something different. Now, you can put it through a food processor if you'd like. I don't really think it's necessary. Let your hands work as well as anything else. You can get really in there and grind up the sugar. When I come back, I'll show you what the finished product is, just so you have an idea as to what texture it's supposed to be, what consistency. We'll bring the ribs out and we'll rub them. See you in a few. Okay, we're back with the ribs. First, let's discuss what kind of ribs you're going to use. It's a personal preference. Personally, I like to use a big meaty rib, country style pork rib. Something, as you can see in here, has a lot going on. A little bit of fat, some fat on the rib, on the actual bone side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the time right now they call it a rub for a reason. You take it. This is the finished product, by the way. You can see it's pretty much mixed up. If you have a couple clumps of anything in there, it's really not a big deal because it's just going to kind of cook into it when the juices start flowing anyway. I like to keep one clean hand because if we don't use all of this, I like to be able to put it somewhere else on something else at a later date. So I use my right hand, sprinkle it on, just take my left hand. That's my tainted hand now. Pork is weird. You really don't want to touch a lot of stuff until you wash your hands, especially raw pork, salmonella, a bunch of different stuff. Make sure you get it in. Take the time to rub it. Flip it over. Dust it. Rub it. The bone side, people say isn't that important, but it's still, the flavor still cooks through and flavors the meat from the underside. This also breaks it down. Tenderizes it, makes it so that when it actually comes out of there, it's falling off of the bone. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take, it seems like a lot of time, but for something like this, it's going to take about 2 hours to cook on the smoker. Smoker gets a really, really good hickory flavor in there. You can do it on the grill. If you do that, I would suggest par cooking them maybe, so that you don't burn them, but they just cook very, very slow. What we're looking for is a temperature inside the smoker to be about 200, 210 degrees. What we're aiming for is an internal temperature on the pork to be about 170 degrees, maybe 180 degrees. Way you find that out is we bring a thermometer out, we insert it into the center, try not to go all the way through to the smoker, because if you hit the surface, you may get a false reading on it. I'm going to do it, wipe my hand off just a little bit. I'm going to show you the inside of the smoker. What I've been doing here, one of my favorite ingredients, smoked paprika. It gives an excellent flavor to things. You can buy it in the store, but I figure I buy the paprika, I smoke it myself while I'm doing this. Basically what you end up with is a very dark, rich color to it. That's all that smoke. Hickory, oak. On the surface here I have racks. I could put this directly on the stainless steel element that's down there. It's fine. I like an even cook on it, so I'd take it up just 1/4 of an inch off the surface. The smoke can get underneath it, the smoke gets around it. It gives it a chance to really, really get something even from the top to the bottom. I'll flip it halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through, just to give it a chance to cook a little more even because you are getting heat from the bottom, even though it's indirect heat. Now what you want to make sure you do, this is the bone side. When you put these on, you want the bone side down to begin with. You can take the abuse a little more. You're really not going to eat that side of it as much as you are on the other side. We're going to close this lid and forget about them for about an hour and a half. Maybe a little bit less time, but an hour and a half, I'll open this up. That way you keep the smoke working in around it. You're not changing the temperature. You really don't want to change the temperature inside the smoker any more than you have to because it just disrupts the cooking process and it takes a lot longer to get back to where you were to begin with. You think peeking in, it's not a big deal, but it ends up being a big deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the mess I have here. I'll take the time to put what I have left into an airtight container. I'll get back to you. Let's take a look and see how the ribs are doing before I flip them. Okay, it's been about an hour. If you can smell what I'm smelling right now with the pork and the smoke, it feels a lot longer because I'm getting hungry at this point. But it's a point where you usually check them, give it a visual check, and we'll decide whether or not it's time to flip them. I usually use a pair of tongs and a pretty good sized spatula underneath to stabilize it. Works pretty well. Watch the smoke coming out, it'll burn your eyes every time. Gonna lift these up. Oh, that's perfect. Can you get a shot of that? That's beautiful. That's exactly what you want in color. Once they're flipped, I'll flip the right one to the left one to the right, just to move them around so you get a little bit more even heat, because you never know exactly where it's coming up from. There's usually a hotter spot on any grill and a cooler spot. Flip this one over like that. Just kind of leapfrog them around. As you can see, it's hard to put just one thing on a smoker at any time. You almost end up jamming it up as full as you possibly can. So what I did was I had some extra jalapenos. I had a little bit of extra bacon and some extra cheese. So I made myself some bacon poppers. That's what this is. There's the vegetarian ones in the front. Give it another 45 minutes, we'll check them, and we'll keep an eye on that from the 45 minutes until we get an internal temperature of the 170 to 180, which is what we're looking for. Meantime, just kind of sit back and relax. Smell the smoke. It smells great. How are you doing? We're back. It's been about 2 hours. This stuff is obviously done. Got the heat. Got some smoke going on here. It's beautiful. Poppers. Some of my friends showed up. They must have seen the smoke signals. That's a pile of ribs. Wow, look at that. Right onto the platter. Just to double check them. I don't know if you could read it. It's going up to about 170. It's perfect. It's exactly what we wanted. I don't want to burn anybody. See how it's kind of falling apart as I'm whacking at it? This piece here, it's probably the best piece on the platter. Fred Flintstone rib. Yeah, they are hot. Chill out, put some of this cooler sauce on it. It'll cool it down. Help yourself. Meanwhile, gotta have the beers. Oh, Rex, if we told Rex that we had ribs, there'd be no ribs left. Sorry, Rex. I'm gonna take a taste of this. Perfect. The consistency, you see the color in it? That's smoke. Some people think when you see the pink that it's not cooked enough. That's not the truth. As it absorbs the smoke, you get a little pink edge going in. Use a thermometer. You can't go wrong. What do you think, guys?
Very good. Very good. Just a little too hot.
Yeah. Feel free. Show up anytime.
What's the other thing you got on?
Poppers. Gonna put a couple of them out. Of course, these poor guys, if they ate them in front of you, they probably wouldn't have any faces left because they're so hot. Take a couple minutes for the bacon to cool down. If you smell the sweet smell of smoke, just follow it, and you're gonna end up at the barbecue. because that's what's important. Getting together with friends. Salud.
Yeah,
Salud, Joe.